Hey, what's up? Hello. If you're new here, my name is Kayla and you are watching Kayla's Bookish Vibes. Today's video is going to require another disclaimer. I'm going to be sharing my shelves with you all today. I am not necessarily recommending these books to you, but I am letting you know that these books exist. If you clicked on today's video, it is because you are looking for or you are interested in finding fantasy or sci-fi books written by Black authors about Black characters. And I'm going to be sharing with you the ones that I currently own. I have not read all of these books, but I will let you know the books that I have read and let you know the star ratings that I gave them. Okay, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started because I have quite a few books. If you can tell, this shelf here is completely empty and so is the shelf above it because that is where I house all of my Black fantasy. I do have other fantasy novels that are not written by Black authors. Today we are strictly going to be talking about the ones written by Black authors. Now I'm going to start with sci-fi first because I don't actually have a lot of sci-fi. I just started getting into sci-fi this year of 2024, so I don't have a lot to choose from, but I will share with you the ones that I do own. So the first one I have talked about here on my channel so many times, and that is Out of Body by Nia Davenport. This is a YA sci-fi that is about body hopping. In this book, we are following two best friends who are celebrating their friendiversary, and they then go out to a house party where things get out of hand and one of the friends ends up passing out in the grass. When she comes to, she realizes that her conscious mind is in a different body. In the entire book, we are trying to get her back into her body and figure out what exactly happened and how she got mixed up in all of this. I really enjoyed this book. I think I gave it 4 or 5 stars. This was so good, and it is very short. So highly recommend that you check this one out. Now, Nia Davenport is also in E. Davenport, and in E. Davenport also wrote this duology. Now, The Blood Trials by N. E. Davenport I have read, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. This was literally my very first sci-fi novel, and I absolutely adored it. It is a bit chunky, but it is just as good. This one I would say is like a middle grade could honestly read this, in my humble opinion. Middle grade could read this, and it is YA. This one is like for the older spectrum of YA. It is a little bit more advanced and has more things in it that you maybe wouldn't want like a 12-year-old to read, you know? In this book, we are following Akenna. Akenna is that girl, okay? I absolutely loved Akenna's character in this book. Akenna's grandfather has died. He was actually assassinated, and the position that he held in this like futuristic world was very high up. So Akenna believes that someone who was equally as high up or even above him had him assassinated. So she is trying to find out who killed her grandfather. Akenna also possesses a very special power. I believe it's like blood magic, but blood magic is outlawed. She's not supposed to have this power, and if anyone finds out that she has it, she will be killed. So she's trying to control this power and hide this power while also trying to figure out who killed her grandfather. That is like one plot of this story. There's a whole nother plot where Akenna is trying to make it through these trials to become part of the, I forget what they're called, Praetorian? I'm probably saying it wrong, but she's trying to be a part of like this fraction. So each fraction has a different job or responsibility in this world, and she wants to be a part of the Praetorian, I think it was pronounced. The Praetorian fraction. These are like the people who fight. Think about like the military. It is very hard to become a part of the Praetorian faction, and in order to do so, you have to pass these set of trials. People die in these trials. Actually, majority of the people who are trying to be a part of this fraction end up dying because of these trials. So we have the plot where we're trying to figure out what happened to Akenna's grandfather and who killed him or who had him killed, and then we're also trying to see if Akenna will survive the Praetorian trials. She has a band of friends that she's like really close to and really loyal with, and I absolutely love those characters in this book as well. Highly recommend this one. This was 5 stars, and it was easy to follow. If you're not into sci-fi or you're trying to dabble into sci-fi, don't be intimidated by the size of this book. I did find it very easy to follow along with. The second book is called The Blood Gift. I have not read this book, nor do I want to read the back or the synopsis of it because I don't want to ruin it for myself. But I will say that most people who really enjoyed this book, and a lot of people really enjoy this book gets amazing reviews. So many people say they felt let down by the second book in this duology. I don't know, because I haven't read it, and I really try to like stay away from the reviews because I want to have my own thoughts and opinions on the second book. But I thought I would let you know to keep that in mind, that a lot of people say they really feel like that this series should have been a trilogy so that it could have been more fleshed out. Either way, I'm really excited to read this book, and I can't wait to find out what happens with Akenna and her clan. Next, we have Binti. This is a trilogy of novellas, so it's just bound into one book, but this is a series of novellas. I think I made a post on my Instagram saying that I wanted to get into sci-fi, and I was specifically looking for sci-fi written by Black authors, and so many people recommended that I try the set of these novellas. So what I do know about this book is that we are following Binti. Binti is a young girl who is very smart and gifted in mathematics. She has been accepted to a very prestigious space school, and while she is on a, I guess, spaceship going to the prestigious school, her spaceship gets attacked and everyone on her spaceship ends up getting killed. She has 5 days to get to this school, and she is the only survivor on this spaceship. The beings or the aliens or whatever they are that ends up killing everyone on her spaceship are still on the spaceship with Binti. So I'm guessing we're following her as she tries to survive these creatures and get to the school. The next one is called Womb City. I have read this one. This is an adult sci-fi, and I ended up giving this book 2 stars, but I still want to put it on your radar just in case that it's for you. It may not have been for me, but it could be a book that you were interested in. I think the synopsis of this book was so interesting. I just didn't necessarily enjoy the way it was executed. In this book, we are following Neela. She is our main character, and she is like a well-known, super successful architect in like this. The setting we're in is like futuristic Botswana. She really wants a baby. However, the body that she is currently in is unable to produce a baby. So because this is in the future, they can have babies in womb incubators. And that is what you see on this cover. This cover is absolutely stunning, by the way. I love the cover of this book. But like I said, the body that she's currently in. So this book also explores body hopping, but it does so in a way that I just didn't find very interesting. And there is a lot of repetition in this book. The way body hopping works and who can body hop versus who cannot is explained multiple times in this book. And I think that was my biggest problem. It seems very repetitive. This is also like a sci-fi horror, so there are horror elements to it. I personally did not find them horrific. I just felt like it was maybe a little graphic. Like there were some scenes where like people were getting killed and the scenes read very graphic and gory, but I didn't necessarily find them horrific. So I would keep that in mind. If you're not into horror, then maybe don't pick this one up. This book is called The Upper World by Femi Faruba. I'm excited about this one though because it takes place in London and it involves time traveling. So we're following Esso. It says Esso has a gift for being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's just landed him in the middle of a deadly conflict between 2 rival South London gangs. I'm excited to hear like the slang in this book. I don't know what it is, but I just love hearing like London people talk, especially Black London people. I love their slang. All he wants is to make it through Friday alive, but then an accident knocks him into a place beyond space or time, a world where he can see glimpses of his past and future. And if what he sees there is true, he and his friends don't have much longer to live unless he can change the course of history. I'm excited to get into this one. I have not read it yet, but I'm excited that it's on my shelf and I can't wait to get to it. Now, probably the most highly anticipated book I have on my shelf right now that is sci-fi is this book, and it is called The Blueprint. I love the cover of this book. It's absolutely stunning. I love the yellow, something about it. But this is kind of like a historical sci-fi novel, and if you don't know, historical fiction is literally my favorite genre. So anytime that I can get like historical with another genre meshed together, I'm all for it. I haven't read this book yet because I'm currently in a book slump, and I don't want that to affect the way that I view this book. So I really am trying to get out of a book slump before I read this one, just because I want to be like in the perfect mood to read this book. So in this book, we are following Solene. Solene is a Black woman who lives in Texas. And in this book, Black women no longer have control over where they live, who they marry, or what they do as a job. Instead, an algorithm determines all of that for Black women. It says Solene takes solace in penning the biography of Henriette, an ancestor who'd been an enslaved concubine as a wealthy planter in 1800s Louisiana. Something tells me this is going to be a very heavy read. That's why I said I want like to be just in a good space when I pick this book up to read it. But history repeats itself when Celine, lonely and naive, becomes entangled with Bastine Martin, a high-ranking government official. Celine finds the psychological bond unbearable, so she considers alternatives. With Henriette as her guide, she must decide whether and how to leave behind all she knows. Inspired by the lives of enslaved concubines to United States politicians and planters, the blueprint unfolds over dual timelines to explore bodily autonomy, hypocrisy, and power imbalances through the lens of the nation's most unprotected, a Black female. This sounds like it's going to be an amazing book. I have like a list of books that are like my all-time favorite books, and these are books that either really started my reading journey when I was just a child, or books that I just feel like have really stuck with me. And I only have 4 on that list, but I'm looking for my 5th book, and something tells me that this is going to be my 5th book. I'm hoping that I'm not jinxing myself by saying that, but something tells me that I'm just really going to love this book. Those are all the sci-fi novels that I have for you. The rest of these books are going to be fantasy, and a majority of them, if not all of them, are actually going to be YA fantasy. I've noticed that a lot of the traditionally published books in the fantasy genre written by Black authors tend to be YA. I am on the hunt for more adult fantasy novels, so if you know of some that are written by Black authors and I have not mentioned them in this video, then please leave them in the comments down below because I would love to check them out. I do have a few adult fantasies. I think I have like 1 or 2 mixed in here. The first one being an adult fantasy is called The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I've actually started reading this book. In this book we are following Tao. Tao is our male main character, and he's training for like his coming of age ceremony. So enter manhood, essentially. He's training for that, but he doesn't necessarily want to go into the army, and that's exactly what his father wants him to do. So right now, where I am in this book, Tao is deciding that he wants to do something else. He doesn't want to be in the army. He wants to marry the girl of his dreams, and he wants to live a very soft lifestyle, maybe like a very meager lifestyle. Just wants to love who he loves, maybe run like a nice little farm and do some administrative work. There are dragons in this book, and so far, how much I've read of this book, the dragons are used more of a weapon. There is also a magical system that I'm trying to grasp, but I will say that it is hard to grasp the magical system in this book so far. You are dropped, in the beginning you are dropped in the middle of a war, literally, like action-packed from the first page. You're dropped in the middle of the war, and I feel like it's going to do that thing where it kind of like zooms out and shows you, you'll understand more of the bigger picture as you read. But right now I'm just kind of stumbling my way through this book. I've heard nothing but good reviews about this book, so I'm hoping that it's just me and that I just need to like catch my footing, and that I will start to grasp and better understand what the heck is happening in this book. I am enjoying it so far. I just feel a little lost. This is about how much I've read of this book. So when I say like I just started reading it, I just started reading it. And if you've read fantasy, this is how much I have left. If you've read fantasy, then you know like world building can take time. There is another book in this series, and I'm going to wait until I finish reading this one to figure out if I like it, if I dislike it, before I continue this series. But this is the one that I'm currently reading, and it is an adult epic fantasy. Our next book is Forged by Blood. I have read this one, and this is a YA fantasy romance. There is a love triangle in this one. In this book, we are following Demi. No spoiler, this is included in the synopsis, but Demi's mother dies very early on in the book, and Demi is pretty much on the run. She has taken up with other family members, and she's pretty much on the run. But she's also trying to fight for her people. Her people are being oppressed because of the color of their skin. They are darker and they have magical abilities. Magic is outlawed in this book. And they're being oppressed by the more fair-skinned people who don't have magic. And Demi is trying to fight for her people, to free her people from this. Opportunity comes up where she's able to help save her people. But in order to do so, she has to kidnap the prince. Again, this is a fantasy romance, and there are multiple love interests in this book. Obviously, one of the romances ends up being the prince that she kidnaps. That's all I'm going to say about this book. I enjoyed it. I think I ended up giving it 3 stars. Again, this is YA, and I feel like it read very, very YA. If you are someone who is experienced in fantasy, and you've read a lot of fantasy, I don't think you'll enjoy this one as much, but if you are trying to dabble in fantasy, if you haven't really read a lot of fantasy and you're just trying to figure out if it's a genre that you would enjoy, then I would recommend this one because it's very easy to follow. I felt like the world building was easy to follow and it was very visual. I felt like I could see the world as it was being explained. I will also say that Demi was a very passive main character. I felt like if she would have been a little bit more aggressive, if she would have been, I don't know, willing to just go the extra mile for her people, then I also would have enjoyed it. I just felt like she was a little too timid. For me, a little more timid than I would prefer for my female main characters to be in a book like this. Next, we have Blood Debts by Terry Benton Walker. I have also read this one and I ended up giving it 4 stars. This was really good. This was really good and it was very funny. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but there were a lot of parts in it that were very funny to me and I quite enjoyed it. I remember thinking when I was reading this book that this could be like a limited series if it were illustrated like in the Boondocks illustration style, you know? It could be a really good limited series on television because I think the comedic relief that you experience in Boondocks would be perfect for a book like this. 30 years ago, a young woman was murdered, a family was lynched, and New Orleans saw the greatest magical massacre in its history. In the days that followed, a throne was stolen from a queen. So in this book, we are following Clement and Christina. They are twins. They are 16 years old, and they are taking care of their sick mother. Turns out, this is not a spoiler, it's in the synopsis. Turns out their mother isn't actually sick. She is cursed and someone is trying to, so now they're trying to figure out who is trying to kill their mother. They seem to think that their mother is being cursed by someone who was on the magic council, and their family actually used to be like in charge or the head of this magic council, and they are no longer the head of this magic council because of what happened 30 years ago. Christina used to be really good at practicing magic, which is the sister in this sibling duo. She used to be really good at practicing magic, but she has given it up. She no longer wants to practice magic. Whereas her brother, who is not so good at practicing magic, kind of has to pick up the slack because his sister refuses to practice. The brother and sister start off with like a strained relationship, but they end up having to work together because they need to find out who is trying to kill their mother. I will say, I enjoyed it. Like I said, there were some comedic moments in it that I just really enjoyed, but also realizing that these characters were only 16 years old and some of the things that happened in this book with them being only 16-year-olds is kind of wild. I think I read that they were 16 in the book and then just forgot that they were 16 in the book and thought that maybe they were like 18 or 19. I still really enjoyed it though and ended up giving it 4 stars. I do highly recommend it. There are some zombies. There's like a zombie scene in this book that I thought was really good and it has stuck to me to this day. I thought it was written really well and I thought it was very visually appealing. Again, that zombie scene would eat if it was illustrated in like the Boondocks style. I just feel like it would be so cool. Sequel to this book, I believe, is already released. I believe it released this month. Let's check it out on Goodreads. The sequel to this book, Blood Justice, released in April. So you can get your hands on this one, read it. If you like it, then you can pick up the sequel and find out what happens. I have not purchased the sequel yet, but I am looking forward to reading it. Speaking of zombies, I have a few books written by the same author. The first being Dread Nation, Rise Up by Justina Ireland, and the second one being Deathless Divide. So this is the second book in the duology. I believe there's only 2 books in this series, and I'm really looking forward to reading this book. This is like a historical fantasy. Again, historical fiction is my favorite genre, so meshing historical fiction with my newfound favorite genre, fantasy, I feel like I'm really going to enjoy this one. There are zombies in this book as well, and I'm really excited to see how she does that. It says Jane McQueen was born 2 days before the dead began to walk the battlefields of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, derailing the war between the states and changing the nation forever. In this new America, however, the battle for survival is as political as it is personal, and the restless dead, it would seem, are the least of her problems. So I'm assuming the restless dead are the zombies. The cover of this book is stunning, and I'm excited because it seems like we're going to get a very strong-willed female main character, and I'm here for that. The next book I have by Justina Ireland is called Rest in the Roots. In this book, it takes place in 1937, and we are following Laura. Laura is moving from Pennsylvania to New York City because she wants to get her mage's license. She applies to get a job with the government, and while applying for the job, she meets someone named Skylard. Skylard, who takes Laura on as an apprentice. They discover some evidence of mystical workings not encountered since the darkest period in America's past, when black mages were killed for their powers, secrets that could threaten their lives and everything that they've worked for. So they go on some sort of adventure to try and figure out what's going on and how is this dark black magic returning. I'm excited for this because, again, it is historical fantasy, and I'm excited to see how they intertwine those elements together. Next book I have is called Skin of the Sea, and this is a duology. The second book in this duology is called Soul of the Deep. These covers are also so stunning. These are about mermaids. So in the first one, it says, Simi prayed to the gods once. Now she serves them as a mami wata, or a mermaid, collecting the souls of those who die at sea and blessing their journeys back home. But when a living boy is thrown overboard, Simi does the unthinkable. She saves his life, going against an ancient decree, and punishment awaits those who dare to defy it. To protect the other mamiwata, Sami must journey to the Supreme Creator to make amends. All is not as it seems. There's the boy she rescued who knows more than he should, and something is shadowing Simi, something that would rather see her fail. Danger lurks at every turn, and as Simi draws closer, she must brave vengeful gods, treacherous lands, and legendary creatures. Because if she doesn't, she risks not just the fate of all of the mermaids, but also the world as she knows it. I'm excited. It sounds like she's going to get into trouble for being mischievous, not following the rules, and I'm excited for that. I don't want to read the synopsis for the second one because obviously I don't want to ruin the book for myself. Next book I have is Sing Me to Sleep. The cover on this book is also absolutely stunning. In this book, we are following Saoirse. As a soldier in training at the most prestigious barracks in the kingdom, Saoirse lies about being a siren to avoid execution. At night, working as an assassin for a dangerous group of mercenaries, she lies about her true identity. And to her family, Saoirse tells the biggest lie of all, that she can control her siren powers and doesn't struggle constantly against the impulse to kill. As the top trainee in her class, Saoirse would be headed for a bright future if it weren't for the need to keep her secrets out of the spotlight. But when a mysterious blackmailer threatens her sister, Saoirse takes a dangerous job that will help her investigate. She becomes personal bodyguard to the crown prince. She should hate Prince Hayes. After all, his father is the one who enforces the kingdom's brutal creature segregation laws. But when Hayes turns out to be kind, thoughtful, and charming, Saoirse finds herself increasingly drawn to him, especially when they're forced to work together to stop a deadly killer who's plaguing the city. So it sounds like this is going to be a fantasy romance about a siren, and there's probably going to be other magical beings because it seems like creature segregation laws. So I'm excited about this. This one is also YA. The second book of this series is called Drown Me with Dreams, and that one comes out August 20th. So maybe I can read this one before that one comes out because the cover of that one, I'll put it on the screen, is stunning. Absolutely stunning. The next book I have is also a duology. I'm not sure if there's going to be a third book in this series, but I do know that people love this series. If you've read this series, please let me know down in the comments what you ended up rating it with. Please no spoilers, but I do know that this is also a fantasy romance. The first book being A Song of Wrath and Ruin. I have to say, like, I feel like YA in general always get better covers. Their covers are always just better in YA, but YA fantasy specifically gets the most stunning covers. The second book in the series is called A Psalm of Storms in Silence, and this is the cover for that one. Again, stunning. For Malik, the festival is a chance to escape his war-stricken home and start a new life with his sisters in the prosperous desert city of Ziren. But when a vengeful spirit abducts his younger sister, Nadia, as payment to enter the city, Malik strikes a fatal deal. Kill Karina, the crown princess of Ziren, in exchange for Nadia's freedom. But Karina has deadly aspirations of her own. Her mother, the Sultana, has been assassinated. Her court threatens mutiny. Grief-stricken, Karina decides to resurrect her mother through ancient magic, requiring the beating heart of a king, and she knows just how to obtain one, by offering her hand in marriage to the victor of the competition. When Malik rigs his way into the contest, he and Karina are set on a heart-pounding course to destroy each other. But as attraction flares between them and ancient evils stir, will they be able to see their task to the death? So obviously they're going to fall in love. They're supposed to kill each other and they're going to end up falling in love. And then obviously I don't want to read the synopsis for the second book because we can't ruin the first one. Another duology. This duology I have read. I know I've been saying a lot of books that I haven't read. This one I have read. The first one is called A River of Royal Blood. I think it's the first one. Yeah. A River of Royal Blood is the first one. This is written by Amanda Joy. I really enjoyed this book. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. So in this book we have 2 sisters. They are princesses. Their mother is the queen. In order for the new queen to take her throne, they have to fight until the death. So you have to, one of the princesses has to kill her sister in order to rightfully take the throne. So the princesses in this story are Eva and Issa. Eva is the main character that we follow the most, and Eva hasn't necessarily come into her power just yet. She doesn't know how to use her powers. And obviously, in order to beat your sister or to have a fighting chance, you have to know how to use your powers. Obviously, the other sister, Issa, is well into her powers, honey. She knows how to use her powers. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the many characters that we were exposed to. And I read the sequel to this book literally like right after I read this one. It was so good. I had to know what happened next because it leaves off on a cliffhanger. So I went into this book. I was so disappointed in this one, not because the writing had changed or that it wasn't a good book. I was disappointed that this was all we were going to get. This is a series that I feel like could have easily been 3 to 4 books long because of all of the characters that we were introduced to in here. We got introduced to even more characters in here, and I just felt like they weren't fleshed out nearly as much, that there were storylines and plots that we could have explored more and like were just as good as the main plot that could have carried us on into 3 or 4 books. So I was just really sad this ended up only being a duology. I felt like it was done a major disservice by not having more books in the series. The series as a whole, though, I think I ended up giving it 4 stars, like with the books together. And this book alone, I ended up giving it 3 stars. I feel like the way it ended, it was just very rushed and it could have been fleshed out more. And I am a series girly. I love when a book has like 3, 4, 5 series, and I feel like this easily could have been like a 4-book series. And I don't see a lot of people talking about this series, so I would highly recommend picking this one up. If you really enjoy this one, then go ahead and read the second one. Just know, in my humble opinion, the second one isn't nearly as good as the first one. Next we have So Let Them Burn, and this is by Camila Cole. Get into this cover. Stunning. Again, this is YA. In this book there are dragons, so if you're into dragons and you need a fantasy with dragons in it with black characters, you should check this one out. There is nothing that Farron won't do for her sister. Farron Vincent can channel the power of the gods. 5 years ago, she used her divine magic to liberate her island from its enemies, the dragon-riding Langlish Empire. But now at 17, Farron is all powered up with no wars to fight. She's a legend to her people and a nuisance to her neighbors. When she's forced to attend an international peace summit, Farron expects that she will perform tricks like a trained pet and then go home. She doesn't expect her older sister, Ilara, forming an unprecedented bond with an enemy dragon, or the gods claiming that the only way to break this bond is to kill her sister. That's all I'm going to read of the synopsis because I do plan on reading this book very, very soon for a video. I can't wait to get into it. The next book I have is called The Self-Same Metal by Brittany N. Williams. Look at this cover. Again, I don't know what it is about YA fantasy, but they get all the best covers. And that's what literally has me plucking them up and why I have so many of them. It says 16-year-old Joan Sands creates and maintains the stage blades for William Shakespeare's acting company, The King's Men, using her magical ability to control metal, a power gifted to her by the Orisha Ogun. Joan and her family have always been aware of the Fae's presence within London society. So there are Fae present in this book. Sorry to backtrack, but there's also Fae present in A River of Royal Blood. I didn't mention that. Joan and her family have always been aware of the Fae's presence within London society. Subtle, peaceful, and marked by the faint glow that only those blessed by the Orisha can see. When England's new king fails to uphold the pact between his realm and theirs, brutal attacks forewarn the approach of a malevolent presence. After Joan wounds a powerful Fae and saves the son of a cruel lord, she finds herself thrown into the middle of the approaching war between the human and the Fae worlds. I'm excited to read this book. What I will say is I love that each page has like illustrations on the side, and I always enjoy that little small touch when I'm reading a book physically, so I'm really excited about this one. There is another book in this series as well that's already released, I'm pretty sure. Yes, that one came out on April 23rd. So that one you can get as well. Are you guys tired of me talking yet? The next book we have is House of Marion by J.L. I love the cover of this book. It is so pretty. It's so pretty. She and her mother have fled from city to city in order to hide the deadly magic that flows through Quel's veins until someone discovers her dark secret. To hide from the assassin hunting her and keep her mother out of harm's way, Quell reluctantly inducts into a debutante society of magical social elites, which she never knew existed, called the Order. If she can pass their 3 rites of membership, mastering their proper form of magic, she'll be able to secretly bury her forbidden magic forever. If her dark magic is discovered, she will be killed. When Quell uncovers the deadly links the Order will go to defend its wealth and power, she's forced to choose: embrace the dark magic she's been running from her entire life, or risk losing everything and everyone she's grown to love. Still, she fears the most formidable monster she'll have to face is the one inside. So it sounds like she's going to be coming into her magic, trying to figure out what her magic abilities are, while also trying to protect her mother and trying not to get herself killed. I'm excited. The fact that being a debutante is somehow included in this book, I really want to see how that's explored. So, and I love the cover of that book. Next, we have a duology that I feel like you can't necessarily mention fantasy written by a Black author without mentioning these books. That is going to be Legendborn by Tracy Deonn and Bloodmarked by Tracy Deonn. I have read neither one of these books. And you know, I haven't read these because I feel like I'm trying to save them until the series is complete. Everyone I know who has read these books have absolutely loved these books and have been waiting, I guess, for a really long time for the next book in the series. I'm excited to read it. I have heard nothing but great reviews about this book, so I'm excited to see what all the hype is about. Next, we have The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. This is a new release. It came out this year in 2024, and I'm pretty excited to read this book. There was a lot going on around the release of this book and around this book in general on the internet, so I'm really excited to finally have it and to get into it. This one is about love potions. Okay, so it seems that in this book we are following our main character, whose name is Venus, and she makes love potions to help support her and her little sister. However, during this time period, making love potions is illegal and it can get you killed or sent to jail. It says when an enemy's iron bullet kills her mother, Venus's life implodes. When the powerful Grand Witcher, the ruthless head of her coven, offers Venus the chance to punish her mother's killer, she has to pay a steep price for revenge. The cost? Brew poisonous potions to enslave DC's most influential politicians in order to pass legislation that will protect witchers for years to come. I'm excited. Seems like she's going to have to do maybe something evil in order to protect her people. Is she going to be able to do it? Is she going to be able to rise to the occasion? I don't know. Plus, I really want to know how love potions are explored and what they like. How does she make them and who do they work on? I'm excited. Okay, next we have 3 books by the same author. I want to say you pronounce this Sarai El Rafi. I could be wrong. But in this one we have The Final Strife, which this is a thick book. And look at the cover. The cover is stunning. And then we have The Battle Drum, which is the 2nd book in the series. I know there is a 3rd book in the series that comes out this year, I believe. And that one is white. And I love the cover of that one even more. So in the 1st book, it says, Scylla dreams of her days growing up in the Resistance when she was told she would spark a revolution that would free the Empire from the red-blooded ruling classes. A spark that was extinguished the day she watched her family murdered before her eyes. Honor has been told that she's nothing, no one, a disappointment. But when Salai and Honor meet, a fire burns between them that could consume the kingdom. Hassa moves through the world unseen by the upper classes, so she knows what it means to be invisible. But invisibility has its uses. It can hide the most dangerous of secrets, secrets that can reignite a revolution. When she joined forces with Salai and Honor, together these grains of sand will become a storm. So it seems like we get 3 different girls from 3 different fractions of society in this world. 3 girls that should not be friends, but somehow end up together and becoming friends, banding together to change some things, shake some things up. I will say though, these books are so thick. Like, what are we talking about? What are we talking about in these books? Like, the world building must be something serious, and that's a little intimidating. Next, we have Faybound by the same author. I believe this one is an adult romantic fantasy. Yeah, it says a romantic fantasy of epic proportions. And I believe that this one is an adult fantasy. This book is about elves and fae. I believe it says two elven sisters become imprisoned in the intoxicating worlds of the fae, where danger and love lie in wait. Faybound is the first book in an enchanting new trilogy from the Sunday Times bestselling author of The Final Strife. So this is going to be a trilogy. This is the first one, and it did come out this year, so this is a new release. It comes out in 2024. I'm excited. So we have two sisters that are elves. It says Yirin was born on the battlefield, has lived on the battlefield, and one day she knows that she will die on the battlefield. As a warrior in the elven army, Yirin has known nothing but violence her whole life. Her sister Lettel is trying to make a living as a diviner, seeking prophecies of a better future. When a fatal mistake leads to Yirin's exile from the elven lands, both sisters are forced into the terrifying wilderness beyond their borders. There they encounter the impossible, the Fae Court. The Fae haven't been seen for a millennium, but now Yirin and Lettel are thrust into their seductive world, torn among their loyalties to each other, their elven homeland, and their hearts. So, excited to see what comes of this. Next, we have two books by Kayla Barron. The first being This Poison Heart. Again, get into this cover. And then the second book is called This Wicked Fate. Love the covers of these. Breezy's has a gift. With a single touch, she can grow plants from tiny seeds to rich blooms. When Breezy's aunt dies and leaves her a dilapidated estate in rural New York, Bree and her parents hope that maybe, surrounded by plants and flowers, Bree will finally learn to control her gifts. But their new home is sinister in ways that they never expected. It comes with a mysterious set of instructions and a walled garden filled with the world's most lethal botanicals. There is more to Bree's sudden inheritance than she could have imagined, and she is determined to uncover it. Excited about that. So she has like this power to control botany, to control flowers and things like that, and she inherits a house that has poisonous flowers. What is she going to do with the poisonous flowers? I don't know, but I'm excited, and I think these are so cute, and I feel like they are the perfect length. How many pages is this book? It's 373 pages. This is the type of fantasy that I'm trying to read. We also have another duology, Blood Like Magic and Blood Like Fate. Both of these are by Lizelle Samberry. I love the cover of these as well. All of these covers that I have been discussing with you all, they have all been so beautiful. So the first book is called Blood Like Magic. I believe our main character's name is Voya. She's trying to pass her witch trial. So she's a witch, and she has to pass like these tests, and I guess in order to become a witch, but she fails the first time. However, her ancestors give her the ability to take the test again, and she agrees. She is horrified when her task is to kill her first love. And this time, failure means every Thomas witch will be stripped of their magic. Talk about pressure, okay? So she fails her test the first time to become a witch, and her ancestors say, okay, you failed, but we'll give you another chance. However, the only way that you can pass this time is if you kill your first love. And if you refuse, then not only you will no longer be able to be a witch, but your family will lose their powers. Can't wait to get into this one. Next, we have a trilogy. This trilogy is complete. The final book comes out this year. It literally comes out next month. And the first book is being Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. And the second book is Children of Virtue and Vengeance. I have read this book, and I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. I loved this book, and I think I did an entire reading vlog of me reading this book and this book together. So I will leave that linked in the cards up above if you want to know my thoughts and a better synopsis of both of these books. I found these books to be very similar. Only one was done extremely well and the other one was just very mid. This book is the one that was very mid, and this book I found to be done extremely well. I really enjoyed this book. In fact, the female main character of this book resonated so closely with myself. I just kept saying, like, I am Zele. Zele is me. She was angry. She was willing to do whatever, whenever, and I absolutely loved that about her. Her people were being oppressed, and the Magi, I believe is what they were called. Magic is no longer in this land. The kids who have white hair would have been able to become Magi had magic still been present in the land. Again, those are the people being oppressed, the people with magic. Those without magic are the oppressors. I won't give too much away in this book. I really want you to go watch the vlog because I feel like I did a much better job at explaining what this book was about and giving you all my full thoughts. But I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And I cannot wait to figure out what happens in this book because this one leaves off on a cliffhanger. And I can't wait to get into this one so that I can finally get into the third one as well. Highly recommend this book if you haven't read it already. Next we have Blood Scion by Deborah Fallet. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but it says 15-year-old Sloane can incinerate an enemy at will. She is a Scion, a descendant of the ancient Orisha gods. But under the brutal rule of the Lucius, her identity means her death. Her mother knew as much, and she disappeared trying to hide Sloane's truth. Sloane, too, has hidden her abilities, but on her 15th birthday, she is conscripted into the Lucis army. Once taken, Sloane must not only conceal her power, but overcome the bloody challenges of Lucius training. If she can infiltrate the army, she could destroy her enemies, the people who think of her as less than human, the overlords responsible for her mother's disappearance. Sloane rises through the ranks and gains strength, but in doing so risks something greater, losing herself entirely and becoming the very monster that she harbors. So, sounds like she's trying to hide her powers while also coming into her powers. And it says that her mother is missing, so I'm assuming she's also maybe trying to find her mother. Excited to read that one. I do believe that is a series. The second book was supposed to come out this year, but it's been pushed back and it's now scheduled to come out in 2025, September 2nd of 2025. For now, that may change again since they've already changed it once. The last two books that I have to share with you, Beasts of Prey. This is the first book. And then we have Beasts of Ruin. I do know that there's also a third book that comes out this year, I believe. I'm really excited to get that one. If it's not already out, I have to get it on paperback though, because both of these are in paperback and I refuse to get the third book in hardback. It says, La Casa was once a city of magic and splendor, but now magic is no more than a myth. Until one night when Coffee, an indentured beastkeeper at the infamous Night Zoo, unexpectedly unleashes a dangerous, untamed power that has been secretly within her for years. She sets into motion a chilling sequence of events that not only upends her whole world, but also links her to a complicated stranger with secrets of his own. As a warrior in training for the elite sons of the Six, Econ's task is to stop Coffee in her attempt to flee the Night Zoo. Instead, she saves him from the Shitani, the monster that has plagued La Casa for nearly a century and stalked Econ's nightmares. Each with their own hidden agenda, the two strike a tentative bargain and team up to capture the Shitani as a hoped-for solution to their dire circumstances. Sounds like it's going to be a fantasy romance. A lot of these books have something in common. Magic has left the land. One of the main characters somehow has magic, or they're trying to figure out how to control their magic, or they're coming into their magic. And then they come across someone else who is supposed to be like their enemy, and they end up falling in love. That is like the main plot that I have seen across a lot of these books, but I just know that they all do them in a different way, and I want to know how each of these books does the same thing. Does that make me boring? Probably, but I'm really excited to read all of these books. All right, y'all, those are all the books that I have for you. If you feel like there's a book that should have been on this list, that I should have on my shelf and I don't, please let me know down in the comments below. I love taking recommendations. If you also know of an adult fantasy written by a Black author about Black characters, please leave those down in the comments below because I am looking for them. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of today's video. If you did, please leave this emoji letting me know that you made it to the very end. I really, really appreciate you all commenting, sharing my videos, and subscribing. It means so much to me. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye.